Susan also helped to take care of Michael at the end while I was out, because I had to leave him home alone, and he had very, very limited mobility and needed to have someone with him at all times. This is Susan.
I met Michael through Peter, who just spoke a minute ago, and thank you, Peter, for that. Michael and I discovered early on that we both shared the same birthday, so we always wanted to get together on our birthday and celebrate, but we never had the chance. So this year on our birthday, I intend to go out and drink a toast or do something special to remember Michael. I just want to tell you a little story. About a year and a half ago, I lost my sister, and I had to return to Nova Scotia for her funeral. So when I came back, Peter told me that Michael was in the hospital. So I went over to see him, and here, I hadn't seen him for quite a while. When I had seen him before, he was robust. He looked quite healthy, as Arnold said. He could turn on a dime. Well, this turn wasn't a good one. He had lost a lot of weight, and he was really, really ill. But the one thing that stuck in my mind was when I walked through the door, he looked at me and he said, "I've been worried about you. How are you?" And here he was with this hole in his side, with tubes coming out of him, and he reaches it and gives me a hug. Arnold wasn't there yet. He had something to do with his mom, I think. And I'll never forget that. And it didn't matter, and everybody here knows it. He, as sick as he could be, he was always right there for, and he always had some little remark to make you laugh, make you smile. It didn't matter what it was about. The last thing I'd like to say is Michael had, he made sure that I would never forget him. I was born on his birthday, and he died on my wife's birthday. So he made quite certain that we would never forget him, and even if that had not been the case, I will never forget him. He is one of the neatest people I've ever met. Thanks.
Would anybody else like to add anything? Okay, my nephew Nicholas.
So, Arnold and Michael were together my entire life. They met 30 years ago today, and I'm turning 30 in 2 weeks. And when you're growing up, it was always just, this is your Uncle Arnold, this is your Uncle Michael. And I just thought, oh, okay, they're both my uncles live together, that's interesting. That's weird, because Uncle Michael is so different from the rest of our family, and I couldn't quite figure out why that was until probably when I was in grade 6, when it finally clicked. Oh! I knew about that people were gay, but I didn't realize that suddenly all made sense. And so I just always really appreciated how different Michael was from my family and the point of view that he gave, and we'll miss him.
Listen to, this is you.
I know that.
He cared very much for all of his nieces and nephews. They're special to him.
Anybody else like to add anything? Oh, my brother Jonathan.
Yeah, so I'm Jonathan. I'm the next brother up from Arnold's two brothers, and I just wanted to thank Michael for something that he did that was very important to us, to our family. Arnold is a kind and loving and very caring person, which was somewhat underneath the surface when he and I were growing up together. And I just wanted to thank Michael for bringing that to the forefront and making Arnold what he is today.
Thank you.
Yes. Well, that's the thing is, Michael and I made each other better people. This is a little sidebar on Nicholas's story. One of Michael's favorite anecdotes is when he first met me, I had a sign on the back of my door that said, quit for Nick, because I was a smoker and so was Michael, and I always wanted to give up smoking. and it was hard. And I figured, well, my first nephew was born, he shouldn't have an uncle who's a smoker, so I'm going to quit smoking. That didn't work. But I will tell you that a good, probably 10 years later, I did quit smoking. And just to share a little anecdote of how, sometimes, you could say someone is strong and tenacious, sometimes they're not. Michael did quit 18 months later, but it was hard for him. He really, really struggled because, one of the things that Michael did, especially when I met him, is he did everything to excess. If he was supposed to take, two Percodan to take care of his pain, he took 4. If he was supposed to have 1 cigarette after a cup of coffee, he'd have 2. I mean, he just, was a very heavy smoker. And his favorite story, because he did finally quit very successfully, and there's slides running at the back that a few of them show him smoking that sort of look odd to you because most of you didn't know him as a smoker, but some of you knew him that period too because he smoked all the way up to 1992 or so or thereabouts. But the one time that he said he was going to quit smoking, he had what would be termed as a complete emotional nervous breakdown while he was smoking his last cigarette. Of the prospect that this was going to be it. He tried, I don't know if you remember, there was a little box called Smoke Enders where you're supposed to program in, and it told you if we went through that program 3 times, he went through the patch program 4 times. Finally that worked, the 4th time was the charm. But he pulled that off. So is there anyone else who would like to say anything? Oh, my other brother David.
Yes, hi, David. I just want to talk more about the end. We've heard a lot about the beginning, we've heard a lot about the middle, but I want to talk a little about the end. And I must say that a unique aspect of Michael that stands out above all is what I would call his hospital manner. I don't think any of us like to be in hospitals. I'm scared silly of hospitals. I'm fortunate that I have good health and I don't have to be in a hospital. But he had to be there often. And I've had to visit many friends in hospital, obviously. And 2 things have always struck me is how much suffering you do in a hospital. And it's largely, as you mentioned, because of the system. The system does not work for patients at all. And God help if you don't have somebody like Arnold who's watching out for you. You are toast. You really are. Your only salvation, ultimately, is your personality and your knowledge. If you have those things, that will get you a certain distance. Michael had both. He had the most wonderful helpmate who watched over him constantly, but he also had intimate knowledge. And so he was able to understand what was happening to him all the time, deal with it, analyze it, and obviously think it through and be very rational about it. But he had one more gift that is outstanding. And it's just simply the gift of relating to people. And this is the most amazing part of somebody who is suffering deeply, 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 over and over and over again, just constantly, year after year, decade after decade, to literally go into a hospital and charm the pants off everybody. He would, he did, and it was truly amazing to watch that at work. I would visit with him for quite long visits, and we'd have a very, very good time together. And beyond, obviously, as we've heard, being able to relate to whoever's visiting him easily. He was able to relate to the hospital environment very easily, too. And he was able to constantly both charm and question the medical profession and what they were doing. It's a very subtle skill here. You're both expecting the kind of care you hope you'll get from doctors who are very uneven in the kind of care they're giving you, yet he would also have that skill to draw the best out of you so that you want to do more for him. And that was ultimately, I think, in all the suffering skill he's able to bring to bear. He's also the only guy I can see who could flirt crazily with all the nurses, aides, amazingly. Just, I mean, they come in the room and he just turned it into an entertainment session. And you could just see them smiling and, you know, and enjoying being there in a sense. And so it's a good lesson in life that when you're down and when you're needy, really does go a long way to put your best foot forward and allow other people to put their best foot forward. And I got to see him just before I left on a trip, about 3 days before he died, and had my last visit with him. And I would have to say, I never saw a more radiant Michael than what I saw at that moment. As close to the end as he was just radiant. His body showed it, his expression showed it, his everything just showed it. You walked into the room, he just beamed totally from ear to ear. He radiated peace, he radiated happiness, he radiated warmth. It's amazing for somebody who's just literally hours from the end. And I think that's ultimately the best testimony to who Michael was. Thank you for allowing me to share that.
Thank you. Yeah, just a personal anecdote about hospital situations is that Michael at the end needed to be shifted about in the bed and moved from place to place, and it took 2 people to do it, and I would often ask that we could send in an orderly to help me. And this one particular day that I called for an orderly and nobody came. I saw the nurse, said, "Where's the orderly?" And I was getting angrier and angrier. Right? By the time the orderly showed up, I was in a really bad mood, because I know one thing I didn't like to see was Michael suffer, and he was very uncomfortable and he was suffering, and I got into a fight with the orderly about how long it took him to get there, to the point where the orderly suddenly went all institutional on me. If you want me to deal with the patient, I have to do it with the nurse. Step back, sir. Sit over there. You cannot touch the patient if I'm going to do this. And so I figured, I can leave here. Michael has to stay. This is not the time to get into a fight, So I just sat in a chair. He called the nurse, and he did that. And Michael, in the pain he was in, laying there on the bed, diffused the whole fight. He said, "We're all friends in here, aren't we?" And he started to talk and cajole and get everyone all happy again. And I said, "That's amazing. Here's a man who at this point just about a month away from dying. He was in incredible discomfort, and he's negotiating the peace settlement in this room between me and this orderly, And he just had that strength and that ability. Anybody else want to add anything? Okay, well, and again, as I said at the beginning, I want to thank everyone who brought food and organized. I prepared a video which is 6 minutes long, and I'm going to run it on the back screen down there. When we're finished here, I'd like everyone to watch it. We have a guest book over here for you to sign. If you didn't get a little brochure with the events on it, take one. And on the other side of the room, there are copies of Being Jewish magazine. Help yourself to them. And Michael has a little inspirational message in each one of them. And I just want to say in conclusion that Michael is the most remarkable man I've ever met, and I'm going to miss him for the rest of my life. So thank you very much for coming, and I'll run the video, and please help yourself to food and coffee and conversation, and stay as long as you like.